Be aggressive, be aggressive, producer Harry says, as the headline for this game. Dan Campbell biting kneecaps, galvanizing a city to the point where everyone in that town loves Jared Goff. If I told you when Jared Goff was traded, I think in 2021, that he would be the most popular person in that town, what do you think would have had to have happened for that to be the case? Because it would certainly be non-football related.
He rented a private jet or bought a private jet, tricked Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins into going up in air with him, jumped out in a parachute with like nobody piloting the plane, and didn't leave any parachutes in there. And so the Lions just by default took over took all the Packers quarterbacks. I don't know, like something outrageous to
the old Indiana Jones trick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to jump out with the inner tube there. Well, Jared Goff had the best performance of certainly on Sunday's action. 30 of 43 for 287, 2 touchdowns, no interception. Baker, of course, threw for 349, but he did have the 2 picks. We're on the first drive where Mike Evans let a ball go through his hands. And let's start here. Let's start with CJ Gardner-Johnson, who won the game and won the battle of social media cut down contest with Baker Mayfield, who was just minding his own business when CJ said that if they had a better quarterback, this team could be really good. Any thoughts on old CJ getting an interception? And
well, first he trash talked Baker Mayfield all week, and this was not Baker Mayfield's fault at all.
Not at all.
The pass went through Mike Evans' hands, but I cannot believe he didn't get flagged. I mean, he literally took the football and tossed it at Baker Mayfield as if to shove all the trash talking down his throat and be like, I got the best of you. When, again, Baker Mayfield made a great throw, and it just went through Mike Evans' hands, and then it ends up in CJ Gardner-Johnson's hands, and then back in Baker Mayfield's hands. So I was actually shocked that there was no flag there. I mean, it was kind of hilarious to see that in a playoff game, though, where, I mean, the NFL does not like when you taunt the opponent, and I would think that taking the ball you intercepted and tossing it back to the quarterback who threw the pass would count as taunting.
I would concur with Mr. Breach there. Yeah, I thought that, by the way, divisional, this is like widely considered by a lot of people the best weekend in football, best football weekend of the year, maybe, however you want to phrase it. And even if Saturday didn't necessarily deliver the goods from you got one good game and one game that wasn't very close. I mean, these 2 games Sunday were outstanding. The Lions and the Bucs started a little slow. You can tell teams are kind of feeling each other out, and then it started getting loose. And I thought Baker played pretty well.
He played awesome.
Lions, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I thought Baker was awesome. Jared Goff was awesome too. Like all 4 quarterbacks today played really well. Goff and the Lions were just better, a little bit better, And I think they did. It didn't feel like they were pulling that far away. It almost didn't feel like they won by 8 points. They did 31-23, of course. Tampa Bay couldn't run the ball. The Lions could. Jahmyr Gibbs is freaking great. Constantly have been taken away by, or takeaway for me with the Lions is that this rookie draft class for them changed everything. I mean, Brian Burns, Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, just to name like 4 guys right off the top who are just impact guys. You see that? Most scrimmage TD by a rookie in Lions history, behind only Billy Sims in 1980 and Barry Sanders in 89. Jahmyr Gibbs with 13 scrimmage touchdowns. He has been a game changer and way more important than Bijan Robinson this season.
Yeah, I was thinking about Bijan during that game and why Arthur Smith no longer has a job, because he refused to use Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts properly. Shout out to Ben Johnson for actually using Jahmyr Gibbs the right way. But I'll say this, Breach. Early in the season, Jahmyr didn't play a lot. They leave him David Montgomery. I think that having those 2 guys in the backfield together has made it easier for both of them. But Jahmyr Gibbs was absolutely electric. Average 8.2 yards per run. And he's also an asset in the pass game, had 4 catches for 40 yards there. But that's what he did at Alabama, so no surprise. And I don't think it's wild to say that drafting him 12th was overdrafting, because he's like Christian McCaffrey. And that's what he told us at the Combine. That's who he sort of patterned his game after. He does more than just run the ball. And he certainly makes life easy for Jared Goff. But here's something that I was thinking about. They struggled a little bit to stop Rashad Wright running the ball. And that's a problem, because this defense has at times not been great. They were better earlier in the year, and they've gotten sort of Cam Sutton had a very long afternoon. After Mike Evans dropped that ball, he lit his ass up. I think he had 4 catches for 97 yards in the first half, including that one down to the 2-yard line at the end of the half, and a great drive by Baker to get them in the end zone there. I'm a little concerned with what this looks like next week if you can't stop the run, but we can get to that. But that's just something that crossed my mind. A huge win, and I would imagine, Breach, that felt for those Lions fans a lot like it felt for you once the Bengals finally got to the Super Bowl.
I mean, it's the same where first they went to the wild card round and you end the 30-year drought. We saw people crying. We saw old people who have waited their whole entire life for this team to end this drought. And you get emotional. And then to win this playoff game, the thing is, it really felt like the fans kind of expected Detroit to win this, because I thought Ford Field seemed like it was in shock when the Buccaneers tied this at 10 right before the half. It really quieted things down. And then the Buccaneers had the ball first possession of the second half, and they drove quickly into Detroit territory. Everybody just shell-shocked. And the Buccaneers probably could have gotten a field goal of that, but I think Aiden Hutchinson came up with a huge sack on Baker Mayfield that knocked him out of field goal range. Yep. But yeah, I mean, this is what you have been waiting for. It's hard to put something like this into perspective, except that it is emotional. And now you have your team going to an NFC title game for the first time since 1991. And Lions fans should just enjoy it. Soak up every single second, because you don't know when this is going to happen again. I'm sure in 1991, they're thinking, we have Barry Sanders. We have the best running back in the NFL. We're going to every NFC title game for the rest of the 90s. And then, now we're 2023 and you're just getting back there for the 2024. And you're just getting back there. So yeah, soak all of this up, Lions fans.
Well, I will be curious to see, I thought Detroit did a really good job of, and not that I expect them to be because they were at home, but you don't want to be satisfied. You don't want to be happy that you don't be like, all right, we finally won a wild card round. And I think Dan Campbell's done a great job of keeping that team level, and Jared Goff, we talked about this before, but Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl. This is not somebody coming of age and trying to figure out how to play in the playoffs. He's played well in the playoffs before, helped get the Rams there. They really could have won the title in 2018 pretty easily if Belichick hadn't come up with that plan. But it doesn't feel like, I don't know, it feels like the Lions are getting right at the right time. I am very curious to know if, and I think we talked about this last night, but how much of San Francisco and Baltimore, or maybe I talked about it this morning, but did San Francisco and Baltimore start slow because we hadn't seen them in a while, right? And is San Francisco going to come out guns blazing against the Lions next weekend? I think. I have an idea? What do you think that line is, Wilson? What's wins over Wilson? Peg. Lions at Niners.
I want it to be 1 point lower than what I'm going to say. I'm going to guess 7.5.
It is 7, and it looks like it's going to go down to 6.5.
Yeah, that's what wins over Wilson, like 6.5. One thing I'll note, I saw this on Twitter from Greg Chandler, who I think covers the Lions in Detroit. He wrote the Lions have just won more playoff games in the last 8 days than the previous 66 years.
That's amazing.
Awesome. And mentioning Jared Goff real quick, I want to throw out what he did in the fourth quarter: 11 of 12 for 131 yards.
He's been clutch, man.
That's as clutch as it gets. That's when you put this game away. This game was tied up at 17. And then Goff decided to go off. That was it. I mean, he played a nearly perfect fourth quarter and put this game away. So, I mean, everybody I feel like wants to doubt Jared Goff because it's like, well, Sean McVay got rid of him and he's a cast off from the Rams. And there's no possible way he can lead the Detroit Lions to the Super Bowl. But now they're one game away. And I do love that this came on, the 3-year anniversary of Dan Campbell's kneecap speech.
A lot of cold takes. I know, that's crazy. A lot of cold takes on the kneecap press conference. I'm sure I've got one out there too. I would say with Goff too, and this kind of goes back to the Sean McDermott conversation, but this Lions team and this Lions coaching staff, when Jared Goff goes out there in the fourth quarter in big spots, he doesn't have to wonder, are they going to ask me to throw it or are they going to try and melt clock and run the football? He knows they're going to ask him to throw it. He knows they're going to be aggressive as Harry popped up, and that they're going to try and ice the game away and not give the other team a chance to come back by virtue of, like, they're not going to run the ball 3 times, try to melt the clock and burn the timeouts. They're going to let Jared Goff throw it. And we've seen that the last 2 games in these big spots in the playoffs. And I think that's a major advantage in the postseason when you, not necessarily that you are aggressive, but that you have an identity that your players trust and understand, and they know when you get to these big moments, win, lose, or draw, that you're going to keep your foot on the gas. Like, I think having that mentality and that approach in the postseason, and just that consistent approach, is really critical to winning in the postseason.
Yeah, I'll go back to that Dallas game in the regular season where you guys were giving me a hard time. I was like, Dan Campbell's like, we're going for it. Whatever happens. It doesn't matter. It's number 2, number 3 seed. And that's just sending a message to everyone else and to the locker room that we're biting kneecaps. And I think the confidence with which Jared Goff is playing has a lot to do with how he's been treated since he's gotten there. And ask Jordan Love if confidence is important. I mean, he was sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a few years. He probably didn't know what his future was going to be. And all these guys are good, man. I mean, so it's just a matter of getting everyone to believe what you're doing. And I don't know if there's any team better than the Lions in terms of getting these guys motivated. Not to throw a wet blanket on this, but I looked this up during the game because I was curious, because Cade Otton went off, which is something you don't typically say. The Lions ranked 32nd in the NFL last month and a half of this regular season against tight ends.
George Kittle.
Yeah. Follow up to that, they ranked 32nd against wide receivers as well. They gave over 230 yards to wide receivers. So Mike Evans is no longer playing, but he was Exhibit A, and Exhibit B will be Brandon Ayuk and perhaps Debo, who we talked about last night, if he's healthy enough to go. But that's a conversation for later. Right now, we're celebrating the Lions doing something that they had not done in over 66 years. Breach, anything you want to add to what we got there?
Goff's most clutch throw. It was 24-17, Lions facing 3rd and 15 from their own 44. And if they have to punt there, they're only up a touchdown. Instead, boom, 16-yard laser to Amon-Ra St. Brown. You get the first down. You score a touchdown on that drive. And at that point, it felt like game over. I mean, 31-17, obviously game over. But that play felt like game over, that one play.
I feel like, and we'll take a break in a second, I feel like, to follow up on what Brinson said about the previous game, I think that the Bucks played a better second half than the Bills did. Like the way Baker was dealing, Dave Canales, first-time play caller, hadn't called plays before at all. And no, I'm not crapping on Joe Brady, but just in terms of that last drive there, it felt like, to Brinson's point, this game was a lot closer than it ended up being, just because it was sort of back and forth.
It didn't feel like an 8-point game. Let's hot topic of discussion was the going for 2 down 14. I know we've covered that, but
Breach had a nice little tweet about it.
What would you have done, Brinson?
You go there. I mean, I understand that it's like hard math to wrap your head around, or hard game theory, whatever you want to call it. But the logic is this: you have, it's like what, 55% chance of getting a 2-point conversion, roughly. And look, I think that personnel matters, coaching, like who your coach is matters, and your play call matters a ton in these spots. Like the Panthers can't just go out there and do this every, go for 2, like it doesn't mean anything. You need to have the proper personnel in place. I think Tampa Bay does, but you go for 2 when you're down 14 in the fourth quarter, because if you get the 2-point conversion, you can then, look at producer Harry. This is the math. You go for 2. If you convert, you kick the extra point, you're up 1, and you win in regulation. And that is the difference to me, is that you can still get to overtime is a field goal, or is a coin toss, a literal coin toss. It is a coin toss, a 50-50 chance of whether or not you'll win. So the percent chance of getting one of those 2 convert, or getting that first conversion, is higher than that. That's why it makes sense. You also have to convert the extra points. You can see the math on the screen, but to me, it does make sense to go for 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's the simple explanation. If you kick the extra point, your best case scenario is taking the game to overtime.
Correct.
And if you make the 2-point conversion, now your best case scenario becomes winning the game. And that's essentially what it comes down to. I do think, Brinson mentioned who you have on your offense and who your play caller is, and that factors into it. But I do think the actual situation itself needs to factor into it. Like 4 minutes left in a playoff game versus 4 minutes left in the regular season. If I'm Tampa Bay, I'm okay. I think the longer a game lasts as a road underdog, the better you have a chance of winning it. Just because you're kind of keeping you get the crowd out of it. So the math makes sense. The math absolutely makes sense, but I was torn on this one. I don't think an extra point would have been crazy.
You know what also helps here? If Mike Evans jumps up straight for the ball instead of sort of backpedals, because I think
or runs through and draws the flag, and then you just quarterback sneak it. The other thing too is that I do understand the argument, the psychological argument that if you don't get the 2-point conversion, that your team feels like you are down, possibly like you're only down one possession because you still have the 2-point conversion to go for. But it's tough to take I think from the team's mentality. But you're also just down 8. The extra points are harder than they used to. I understand going forward. I think it's more commonplace and more accepted now than it used to be. But I can see the argument against it in certain spots. I would have gone for it.
All right, there you go. I don't have an issue going for it. Makes sense to me too.
Okay, but if we want to grill a Todd Bowles decision, here's one. How about using your freaking timeout at the end of the game? The Buccaneers had one timeout, and Jared Goff kneeled it with 36 seconds left, and Tampa just on third down. And the Bucs just let the clock run out. You call a timeout, and you make them try a field goal. So who knows if they even try the field goal. So Detroit had the ball at Tampa Bay's 30-yard line. So if you call and you lose a yard on the kneel down, so 31, you call the timeout, it is now 4th and 13. So either the Lions are going to punt it or run around for 5 seconds and chuck it in the end zone or try a field goal. And a field goal is not a gimme from 49 yards. If you block it, if they miss it, you get the ball at the 39-yard line. You need 61 yards to tie the game, and you have 34 seconds, or probably 5 seconds are off the clock. You have 29 seconds, but it blows my mind that a coach in the playoffs would go home with the timeout in a one-score game where they could have gotten the Buccaneers offense would have gotten the ball back.
It was 4th down. Like, even if they make the field goal, you're getting the ball back. Like, you could. If they make the field goal, maybe you return the kick to midfield. You take one shot, make one quick play, kick the field goal, and then go for an onside. It's like you have to extend the game. It was insane that he did that.